First, let's start off with a little bit of quick news. SVS has something interesting coming, the new Evolution speakers, and that's a complete refresh over the somewhat dated at this point Ultra series. It's something that I feel like is going to be getting a lot of people's attention. The information is somewhat limited at this point, but this is what I've gathered so far. The tower looks to come in 3 flavors: the Evolution Titan, and the flagship Evolution Pinnacle. The Pinnacle has a 1-inch diamond-coated tweeter, dual 5¼ inch glass fiber composite mid-range drivers, and 4 8-inch woofers. The 4 woofers are dual opposing, and the tweeter has its own enclosed space within. These are completely passive as well, no internal amps for the woofers. I don't have all the other specifics for the other tower models, but I believe the Titan is very similar to the Pinnacle, except that it uses 6.5-inch woofers instead of 8s in the design, and I believe the base model uses 5¼ inch woofers with the same configuration. The cabinet design obviously grabs your attention a bit, almost Focal-like design. The reason they do this is because it's meant to be acoustically centered and time aligned. All the drivers are aligned in a single plane to get basically everything to you all at once. They come in gloss black, white, and I believe black ash veneer as well. Hoping we get that last option beyond the gloss finishes for those who want these to blend in a bit more. This will be an entire series release featuring 2 bookshelf options: the Ultra Evolution, which is the premium and larger variation with the 6.5-inch woofer and 1-inch tweeter, as well as the Evolution Nano, and that one comes in a bit smaller with 5.25-inch woofer and the same tweeter. Beyond that, we get new height speakers as well as a new center channel to match up with everything else. Pricing for the tower looks to be $5,000 for the largest Pinnacle pair, $4,000 for the Titan, and $3,000 for the smallest variation, the Evolution. $12.99 for a pair of their larger Evolution bookshelves, and the smaller Nanos coming in at $8.99. It's an interesting design, good looking grille. Price is definitely increased over the current lineup, but it also looks to be a bit more impressive, at least on paper at this point. Let's wait and see how these ones actually stack up. Especially interested in seeing some of the frequency charts with these. I was also half expecting to see a new sub released, as it's been quite a while, but I guess we're gonna have to wait a bit longer on that one. Now let's get into the review. A $219, made in the USA, full metal enclosure, pre-out abilities with discrete rather than op-amp design. Oh, and it has some magical halo tech or something that they won't say for certain if it actually does anything. Well, we'll get into that one a little later though. A big thanks to Schiit for sending this out. As always, all thoughts and opinions are my own. No pressure or input from the company here. Starting off, how about that price? The Midgard is a flat out deal in comparison to a lot of the competitors with similar specs. Careful when you look at this, you see the XLR connection up front, and you could easily assume that this is a fully balanced amp. But it's really not. The inputs are fully balanced, but the outputs are single-ended. We get the benefits of interference resistance, but we won't see that power boost from the XLR connection. But honestly, it's hardly a concern when your single-ended output is 5.5 watts at 16 ohms, 3.2 at 50 ohms, and 375 milliwatts at 600 ohms. That amount of wattage should realistically be able to drive anything you throw at it. This one's slim and it comes at 1.5 inches tall, and it stacks well with the Modius stack. Casework looks really nice and feels very similar to their theme. All metal, rounded edges, and plenty of holes punched through it for ventilation. The front greets us with the input button, gain button, push in for low or out for high, which will provide around 14 dB of gain, and the volume knob, as well as the single-ended and XLR output connections. The button feel? About what I would expect at this price. There's a little bit of play, but nothing concerning. The volume knob has a really nice feel. It's pretty smooth and offers a little bit of resistance, which helps things out. Side note, the volume potentiometer is actually the Alps Blue Velvet Pot, the one they used on some of their other higher end pieces of gear, namely the Jotunheim 2. The single-ended output is fine, nothing to note here. The XLR connection has a little bit of play to it. It's not loose per se, but you can get a little bit of movement in there if you wiggle the connection. Looking at the back, we're met with 2 input options, XLR and standard RCA, as well as 2 mirrored outputs. It does function as a preamp, but to Mini's dismay, there is no switching. The preamp outputs on the back are on at all times. Nothing mutes when you plug in the headphone. This would have been the icing on the cake for this one, but we often get a bit carried away on products like this. They start offering more and more, and it's a great price. Then we bicker when it doesn't cook supper too. But hey, that's how this business goes. We always search out for that next step. Next, we have the power switch in the rear. I've commented on this one before. Just not my favorite location, but it is what it is, and at least they offer a way to see the status without a blinding light in the front. When the unit is on, you simply get this warm red glow coming from the top ventilation holes. Okay, so this whole halo thing. Basically what happened here is Schiit implemented a mixed mode feedback system that puts the driver into a feedback loop. What's that mean for you and me? Well, they're being a bit coy about it. They even state that some might think it helps and some might not. Even go as far as saying they can't really measure it. So rather than spending tons of money on research and in turn significantly raising the price for consumers, they actually did something I really appreciate. They put the product out there to the public and made it as clear as possible that they were trying something new and that it may or may not benefit you. I'd like to tell you that I heard an obvious difference between the single-ended and Halo XLR, but I honestly didn't. It takes time to switch between connections, and I can't say for certain what I was hearing was real or bias. There were times and tracks where I thought I was getting something and others not, which does fit their description for this. It may or may not make an audible difference to you. I tried not to let the new tech bias me, and if it's that close where I can or cannot say there's a difference, I'm sticking that they sounded mostly the same. At least to me with my specific pairings. But just remember here, even without Halo making an obvious difference, this is a steal at $219 with this level of performance and power. The pairings do come into play as well. This technology is going to be more effective with dynamic drivers more so than planar, and even beyond that, possibly more measurable and meaningful on a speaker amp pairing with larger drivers, which they've hinted is likely on the way, something I would really be interested to check out. Getting into the sound quality review, it's easy to see and hear that the Midgard is extremely clean and transparent to the source. It's actually the best measuring headphone amp Schiit has produced to this point. Both the RCA and balance offered the same crystal clear performance without any noticeable indication to myself which I was using. A transparent amp should be true to the source, which this one is, and your biggest changes will be the headphones you select to pair with it. I don't deny there is differences in sound between certain amps. It can be all kinds of things, for instance. This one being a discrete design versus op amps. Many feel the discrete designs come across warmer with less glare in the top end of the frequency chart. I don't feel it's that simple personally, and I feel it comes down to more of a specific product level. The amp characteristics should be reviewed at the product level rather than labeling topologies with a specific sound. As this group of equipment fits the bill, let's make a stack for testing using the Modius stack. The Modius is a great pairing here. It stacks perfectly and is in the same family for pricing, along with the HD6XXs, a PC37X, which I primarily use for work calls as it does have a mic, and a couple of IEMs I had in for testing. The subjective testing below is covering what I heard using the HD6XXs. The bass produced had great control, a good dynamic sound that didn't blend too far into the mid-range, muddying up that sound, which is something I always look for. When you hang on a bit too long in that mid-range, you can get this overpronounced bass that sure gets you a little more thump, but takes away from some of the detail and precision. The mid-range is full of dynamics and has a very natural sound. Voices, male and female, were produced with great accuracy and tone. I wasn't able to perceive any noticeable coloration. Something I always look for in this area would be that the male and female vocals are both represented in the same light. Some curves strongly favor one or the other. I felt that the treble had an airy sense to it, very clean and resolving without the feeling of anything extra more than what is expected. Generally, the extra in this case would be sibilance, and thankfully that was avoided here as well. Nothing artificial, just your music coming in and then out to the drivers. I won't get into the sound review with the IEMs here, but just wanted to note that this amp had no issues with them. Excellent noise floor, and the potentiometer they used here does a great job with balance, even at low levels, which is often problematic for others. If anyone asks for a suggestion on a headphone amp at roughly $200, this is the one that's going to get my recommendation at this time. It's completely transparent, has all the power you'd need. Well, no doubt there's some headphones that basically need a speaker amp to get the most out of them, but those are far and few between. The measurements that are out there back all of this up as well. Well, not so much for Halo, but I'm going to leave that one up to you to discern. And even if I didn't get any aha moment with Halo, the general performance of this amp at its price point remains almost unreal. The fact that it's not truly balanced shouldn't be a concern for most either. You still get the benefit of the balanced input, and the power levels are so high through the single-ended connection that you really shouldn't even require it. With or without Halo, I think this is really a steal. I'd really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe as always. The community makes all the difference in keeping this channel going. Drop a comment below if you have any thoughts on the SVS speaker or this headphone amp, and I'll talk to you later. Take care. See ya.